So, welcome everyone. We are in the final section of Lojong, the 7 points of mind training. We're at the seventh point, essentially the guidelines for continuous practice and fruition of practice. And we are looking at the verse 39 and 40, and this is part 2 of looking at verse 39 and 40. And as we begin, we'll start with our opening chants. And again, over and over, this very first verse or prayer sets the tone for our entire meditation practice and our intention as we move through life. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. So just think how this opening prayer establishes our intention of Buddha bodhicitta for all sentient beings, establishing all sentient beings liberated from suffering, but with a fearless open heart. And if we truly have a fearless open heart, then there are no enemies or obstructors. We're including them in our warm, generous, open heart. So it's a teaching on fearlessness right at the beginning. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. As earth and the other elements together with space eternally provide sustenance in many ways for the countless sentient beings, so may I become sustenance in every way for sentient beings to the limits of space until all have attained nirvana. As the Sugatas of old gave birth to the bodhicitta and progressively established themselves in the training of a bodhisattva, so I too, for the benefit of beings, shall give birth to that bodhicitta and progressively train myself in that discipline. At this moment, my life has become fruitful. I have realized my human life. Today I am born into the family of the Buddhas. Now I am a child of the Buddhas. From now on, I will forthrightly perform the actions befitting my family. I will act so as not to degrade the faultlessness and discipline of my family. Just as with a blind man finding a jewel in a heap of dust, thus somehow bodhicitta has been born in me. This is the supreme Amrita which destroys death, the inexhaustible treasure which removes the world's poverty. It is the supreme medicine which cures the world's sickness, the tree which provides rest for beings weary of wandering on the paths of existence. It is the universal bridge on which all travelers may pass over the lower realms, the rising moon of mind which dispels the torment of the kleshas. It is the great sun which puts an end to the obscurity of ignorance, the pure butter which comes of churning the milk of the holy Dharma. For travelers wandering the paths of existence seeking happiness from objects of enjoyment, it is supreme bliss near at hand, the great feast which satisfies sentient beings. Today, witnessed by all the protectors, I have welcomed the sentient beings and Sugatas, Devas, and Asuras rejoice. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So, good morning. I'm going to put the slogans we are working with in the chat box. So, the 7 points of mind training are organized into a series of, I think, 59 slogans. And we are digging deep with each of them, really exploring them and their relevance in our practice and how we bring our practice into daily life. So, this morning, all activities should be done with one intention, correct all wrongs with one intention. Just even as we start meditation, we see how in all of the Mahayana traditions, we start not with opening prayers. We start by setting our intention in the form of opening prayers. So our intention, even for this brief hour today, is to wake up our mind into expansion of bodhicitta, greater and greater understanding of bodhicitta, or loving kindness and compassion in a unconditioned or boundless sense, to ripen step by step that bodhicitta in depth and breadth. So that's the one intention. And then correct all wrongs with one intention is then any confusion that arises during the day, during our practice, or in our thoughts, or how we encounter other sentient beings, we correct all wrongs with reviving that intention to grow in loving kindness and compassion. So that is the guiding principle. It's so accessible, and it is also difficult. And I wanted to acknowledge this is a training system that has worked well for students for centuries, and different masters have had different ways of teaching it. So evidently Geshe Chokawa, who originated the training, said that it really doesn't, there's no set in stone sequence. You don't practice it in sequence, and there's no one way to teach it. It's effectively organized as we receive it as a Dharma teacher now in this century, in terms of each slogan neatly fitting into one of the 7 points. But other training manuals organize them differently. The interesting reference for this particular slogan is how to work with the teaching in a day. So in a day, if we make all our activities based in one intention and correct all wrongs with one intention, that's a beautiful instruction of how to move through the day today. And so if we look at it very simply, all activity should be one intention. It means holding mindfulness with all of our senses and using each moment of attention, each moment of, even our general activity like eating, or rising from a chair, or going outside and seeing a sunny day, with one intention. How do we use each and every moment to expand our compassion? And so we can do that by, I'm looking outside, we have a beautiful fall day, so I can make the intention to offer that beauty to all sentient beings, particularly those who are experiencing conditions where there is no beauty to uplift their spirits. And this morning it was really cold, and so the feeling of coldness, may all beings be liberated from cold. May they find a warm shawl. I take in the coldness of all beings, and I send them the warmth of my wool zen, for instance. So every thought that breezes through our mind, every I'm looking at the flowers on the altar, every lovely sight that we see can be used not only for our own delight and enjoyment, but then to expand our heart's compassion. So then how do we move deeper with this? Where is the difficulty that I was mentioning in this? And that has to do with starting to see where we're fearful. As I said, we're talking about boundless compassion. Where do we start feeling uncomfortable with this open, warm, generous heart? And how and when do we set up a boundary that starts to exclude, starts to lock us into our bubble of a narrative and exclude? And so we think about all the different situations that are uncomfortable for us, and how quickly, we know this, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And so we can use this practice, which emphasizes the taking in of suffering and giving with a generous, open heart, that which supports us, we give that to others. This practice of Tonglen, to experience that moment of creating a border, that moment where fear goes out, that moment we start to exclude. And this is a form of practicing it that works with a natural progression from your mind to your speech to your every action in your body. So we start with imagining the discomfort, imagining difficult situations, and responding in a warm, open, generous way. And we slowly create, in thus doing, a habit of that open, generous heart being able to meet whatever situation we encounter, no matter how difficult. But we start in our imaginations in a protected moment. So we could say, this moment, we all have the conditions to meditate. We're in a protected environment from the weather. Many households are not peaceful, but I hope that you're in a room where you can be peaceful in this moment and not feel in any way frightened or threatened. So creating for ourselves this condition to look at our mind and to look at when we begin to, through fear, through a sense of needing protection, build a wall and a habit of building a wall that starts to isolate us in our own narrative, where we shut down that open, generous heart. And so that's why Tonglen is such an interesting practice. it's not a practice in which we're um, essentially relieving any kind of uh, guilt and thinking, just imagining doing things for others. So, we see, in America, when there's a tragedy, people are saying, we're tired of thoughts and prayers, do something. This is doing something, because this is seeing, where does fear arise? Where does this overwhelm arise? Where does this building of a wall turn into inaction? And how can I dissolve those borders so that then I can move from my imagination to my voice, from my voice to acting? So Tonglen has 4 stages in terms of a little increments when we want to look at, how do we learn this? How do we set new habits? And the first stage is touching base with your relaxed, open, generous heart. And even that can be challenging and frightening to people. I remember I was teaching a group of young people. It was a retreat where everyone was under 25, and to a person, everybody was afraid to just open their mind to whatever experience arose in their mind. Even at that age, everybody had a wound they were afraid of, or something they were afraid of. So in that case, we can even start with an affirmation that I trust the Dharma, I trust the people who have gone before me. And we can say, in every spiritual tradition, everyone who has gone before to a expanded heart mind, an open, generous mind, each and every tradition says, it was always there, I just didn't know how to open to it. It is your innate potential. So even starting with that affirmation is very helpful. And then we can relax into this moment, this limited moment of the conditions to meditate, and just rest there. And it's the resting and opening that starts to help us touch base with our good heart, our warm, open, generous heart, no matter how bruised it's become through life. So we're returning to that innate nature. So that's very short. And last week we were looking at, okay, to the degree that we're able to relax in that state, what does it feel like to move towards discomfort instead of run away from discomfort or freeze or fight the situation? What is it when we allow just a little bit of discomfort that's fairly neutral, that we can allow in or welcome and not trigger fight, flight, or freezing? And so I was recommending, well, if you could smell your ripe garbage, that's a slight neutral discomfort. Someone brought up the example of cigarette smoke. If the air were slightly denser, that might be a discomfort. But the point is, we want a gentle discomfort, so we can begin the habit of just saying, well, I can relax right here. Like right now, it's only a little cool in my house because I turned on the heat to take the chill off. So, all right, so there's just a little bit of a chill. I can fight that. I can bundle up. I can run over and turn the heat on, or I can relax with it just as it is, that this is actually a discomfort that I can tolerate. So I can breathe in that discomfort and really send out to all beings who similarly are feeling cold at this moment, the warm aspiration that they all find heat, that they all find warm clothes. So those are the first two stages. And I'm going to invite us to sit there for a couple of minutes, just looking again at what is our response when discomfort barely begins. Before we're triggered, before we're unhappy, can we notice the shift in our warm, generous openness to the focus on the discomfort and the wanting to change it for our own experience to be better? So see what it feels like in your mind, see what it feels like in your body, physically. Just notice that shift from warm, generous, totally open to, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable, I don't like this. And as you're exploring, see what it's like to welcome that discomfort, recognize that others are suffering in this way, and just with this slight discomfort, open to those who are suffering, sending them a warm blanket, a warm drink. It's not about finding a solution. It's about opening to this discomfort of the pain in the world, connecting your intention of growing in boundless compassion and the capacity to act. So I'm going to talk now about why it's important to pair this with the next slogan, correct all wrongs with one intention. So as I was saying, many people find even the first instruction just touching on our own natural, open, warm heart to be frightening or difficult. And the slogan, correct all wrongs with one intention, could be retranslated to make a fresh start. So there's a sense of, let's say, the first touching base relaxing and opening to your heart mind feels frightening or painful, then, oh, how wonderful that I can see it right in this moment. I've not wanted to see it, but until I see it, I can't do anything about it. So, right in that moment, a fresh start with a sense of, for myself and all beings who are finding this difficult, I take on the sadness and the fear in this moment and send out relaxed warmth. So there is a immediate forgiveness of any doubting one's own capacity, of any fear for one's capacity, or any judgment of one's capacity. Just seeing, oh, this is where I am today. I see that vulnerable being who has the intention to open their hearts. I see how painful it is. I take in that pain and send out support. So as we progress through the stages, anytime we hit that boundary coming up, can be like a door slamming shut, a curtain coming down, what feels like a wall, then we say, oh, honey, this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see where my boundary is and learn how to soften right there. So I forgive any judgmental thoughts. I forgive any imperfections I have. And I send myself and everyone who's feeling like that support right in this moment. So we move from touching base with our generous, open heart to something that's fairly neutral, so we can see what, like just dipping our toe in the water might be. And then we start moving a little more directly into our daily life, and we imagine someone that we're close to. So it's very important that we're just moving from dipping our toe to dipping our ankle. So we want to work with someone that we feel really an uncomplicated friendship with. Not a spouse, not a coworker, no one that's going to give rise to all kinds of difficulties, but someone that you love, that your natural wish to help is pretty fluidly open. And we imagine that person, and we imagine whatever suffering they might have. And there is, in that relationship, not an automatic response, but a genuine response. If I could take that from you and lift it from your shoulders, I would. If I could take that feeling miserable with COVID on my body, I would, just in the same way a parent of a beloved child would. So we imagine someone and we look deeply into their heart, and we look at all the different kinds of sufferings they might have. It might be a grandmother going into old age. It might be a child who is teething. You know, it's not about what's happening. It's seeing that within your capacity is to be so authentically compassionate that you would welcome taking on the suffering of another being if it were possible for you to do that. And again, we're looking to see, even with this person that we love dearly, when does fear arise? When does overwhelm arise? When does the boundless, genuine response turn into, oh no, I'm not sure about this, I've got to get my boundaries up again? So we want to see that place. And working over and over again with, forgiving our own imperfections, not judging how quickly our boundaries come up, but just noticing, can I soften when the boundary starts to come up and stretch a little today? Can I see that fear arising, that self-protection arising, when it's still permeable, and rest right there and stretch into a moment longer? Can I ripen just 1 millimeter of my compassionate heart today? My compassionate response, my unprotected, undefended heart, can I hold it open for 1 second more today? So let's work with that again in such a gentle, kind relationship with one's own heart-mind, with the intention to ripen the seed of bodhicitta, to move through our confusion and see that, yes, we can hold discomfort a little bit longer. We can learn how to make a habit of moving towards discomfort instead of bringing the barriers up. And then the fourth step is moving from the situation with this authentic, genuine responsiveness, and to the degree that you're able to stretch this morning, welcoming all the beings that are suffering just in the same way. So, for instance, this morning I was thinking of my little great niece, and so I'm going to move from her moment of confusion and suffering to, let's say, one by one, everybody in her daycare center. Can I be that open, warm, and responsive one by one till I get to all children? Starting with the daycare center, going to all children suffering in the world. So we move distinctly, carefully, because one by one we're looking to see where does our boundless warmth start having a boundary. Soften into the discomfort of that moment. Relax into the discomfort of that moment and invite our heart-mind to rest there until it can stretch a little further. So in this way, we are learning how to train our minds to move into the kinds of situations that we're uncomfortable with and might strike us might allow fear to come up. But we're learning how to maintain a mind that is open, warm, and generous, and to come back to that over and over again, and how to see in the situation what we imagine the object of our meditation, the one being then expanding to multiple beings, to see from the perspective of what do they need as opposed to what do I need to stay comfortable. So next week we're going to then say, well, how does that move from just a mental exercise into when we're encountering a difficult situation in daily life. But for now, we can see why this is an extraordinary training exercise, because we're little bit by little bit encountering fear, encountering discomfort, and learning how to be more clear about what is the whole arising situation, as opposed to I'm going to run into my cave with my warm blanket. Okay, so I'm going to open up to thoughts and reflections now. And we always keep our discussion just limited to the group so people can feel safe about freely expressing their emotions. So I'm going to do a quick dedication and let go of the live feed. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn may it arise, where it is born may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.